Power vested in me by the state of Maine. I hereby order you to serve 2 life sentences back to back. 1 for each of your victims. So be it.
The Shawshank Redemption flopped at the box office in 1994, but it became a Hollywood classic in the 21st century. It was an adaptation of a Stephen King's novel Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. Besides the godly voice and overwhelming acting of Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins, Bob Gunton, James Whitmore, director Frank Darabont and 13 times Oscar nominated and 1-time winner DP Roger Deakins done an exceptional job which connects the audience to the film in the true sense of cinema. This film was a box office disappointment at the time of its release because of several reasons, like the competition from the films The Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction, general unpopularity of prison films, lack of female characters, and even the title was confusing to the audience.
So people went to see the Shawshank Redemption and then they came back, oh man, I saw this really terrific movie. It's called the Shank Sham. Shim Shank. One lady saw me in the elevator one time. She said, oh, I saw you in the Hudsucker Reduction.
In this very first episode of Film Breakdown, we are going to discuss some of the points of cinematography and filmmaking techniques of Shawshank Redemption. In filmmaking, most of the time a DP chooses the camera and lens, but sometimes a director also has control over the choices of camera and lens. In Shawshank Redemption, Roger Deakins used an Arriflex 35 BL4S camera with Zeiss standard speed and super speed lenses such as Zeiss Distagon and planar lens. His favorite lens is probably 32mm Arri Master Prime, which is equivalent to 50mm in full-frame cameras. For conversations, he used wide light 29 or 35mm for natural proximity to the characters. As far as lighting is concerned, Deakins used HMI so naturally that we can't distinguish between the natural light and the artificial light. In this scene, DP used a 12L HMI with the 12x12 Griffon reflector that was set above the windows. For several times we can see that they used the light on the offside of the camera. Resulting shadow play helped to emphasize the mood which portrays the dark side of the prisoners as a whole. When Hadley was beating this prisoner, they were shown in silhouette, which indicates the inhumanity of the guards towards the prisoners. Red meets the parole official 3 times. Now look at these 3 screenshots. In this first scene, there was no hope for Red's parole approval, so the scene was little bit dark. The middle one is brighter than the first one, and in the last one, you can see the sun rays are directly hitting Red, which expresses his hope and freedom. In this scene, the room was very dark, given the fact that Brooks' parole has been approved. This indicates that Brooks wasn't happy with his civilized freedom.
You're free. You're free.
This scene, Red was standing in shadow and Andy was standing in light, and eventually left the frame towards the light. But Red was still standing in the shadows, shows that Andy is going towards hope and Red's disbelief in hope. Same for this scene, Andy's face was half lit and then he looked towards the light as he was too close to freedom. Camera angles and camera movements of Shawshank Redemption was so simple yet so powerful, which led this film to the nomination for cinematography in the Oscars. When Andy was entering prison, we can see a low-angle POV shot of Andy. The camera looks up at the towering prison and tilts back more and more, as it was his last gasps of daylight. They shot the guard from low angle, which showed the superiority of power. In this scene, when Hadley was about to push Andy from the roof, we see the scene starts from a very high angle, and to portray the unbalanced position of the scene, DP used the blocking with an unbalanced line. This camera movement made possible using a mechanical arm with a remote head for small spaces. There was a prominent difference in camera angles for Brooks' release and Red's release. When Brooks released, the camera was placed outside of the prison facing him when he was standing in the shadows of the jailbirds, even after his freedom. But in case of Red, camera was inside the gate pointing towards outside, which shows he accepted his freedom for Andy. To make the characters' moods intimate enough, they have done some subtle pushing in the bus for Brooks and Red using a PV dolly with a good dolly grip. There was a series of fluid complex shots as Andy was playing music over the speakers. First time in this scene, prisoners showed under full sunlight with opera music and they felt like a free man. Several times in Shawshank Redemption, one scene led to another scene with a dissolved transition, which shows the passage of time. In this scene, camera was looking down on Andy from heaven, his arms outstretched, and his sins were literally washing away. In Shawshank Redemption, long text produces realism.
Tarring the roof of one of our own houses. We were the lords of all creation.
Close-up and slow zoom indicates formalism towards the character, which made the story intimate enough to affect the audience. Shawshank Redemption released in two Blu-ray formats for digital media. One is Warner Bros. Blu-ray and another one is M6 France distributed Blu-ray. In these two images you can see Warner Bros. Have little cool color temperature and M6 France Blu-ray has little bit warm color temperature. When someone asked about this in Roger Deakins' official website, he replied, "They both look wrong to me, but what can you do?" And he also added, the exterior was little cool and the courtroom a little warm. But these images are going too far in either way, and the density is shifting as well. If we go between these two colors, I think he was talking something about this. Here you can see a very clever filmmaking choice of Frank Darabont, that to emphasize the feeling of loneliness of Brooks, he directed the visions of the other actors in the bus away from Brooks, and on this road you can also see the pedestrians are looking away from Brooks, that expresses his loneliness. True friendship and hope helped us connect to this film, and it has a special place in many of our hearts. And this film taught us how should we deal with our life.
Get busy living, or get busy dying.